Do you remember summers before air conditioning when the kitchen was the last place anybody wanted to be? Our grandparents had a whole way of eating that kept them cool and cost almost nothing. Today, we're serving up 25 cheap summer meals they made to survive the worst heat waves. Let's start with the tomato sandwich. If you grew up with a garden out back, you know exactly what I mean. 2 slices of soft white bread, a thick smear of mayonnaise, and a tomato picked so ripe it was almost warm from the vine, sliced thick and salted heavy. That was lunch, and often it was supper too. Back in those days, nobody thought twice about eating a sandwich made of almost nothing because the tomatoes were free and the bread cost a dime. The juice would run down your wrists and drip off your elbows, and your grandmother would tell you to eat it over the sink. There was no stove involved, no oven heating up the whole house on a 90-degree afternoon, just cold tomato, cool mayonnaise, and bread. Simple as could be, for a lot of families, the humble tomato sandwich was the taste of July. And to this day, one bite can carry you right back. Cucumbers and onions in vinegar. Every summer garden gave you more cucumbers than any family could eat, and this is what Grandma did with the pile of them. She'd slice them paper thin, slice up a sweet onion right along with it, and drown the whole bowl in vinegar, a little water, salt, and a spoon of sugar. Then it went into the icebox to sit. By supper time, you had a bowl of something cold, tangy, and crisp that woke your whole mouth up on a sweltering day. That's right, it cost practically nothing. A cucumber, an onion, and vinegar you already had in the pantry. Some families let it sit for days, topping the bowl off with more cucumbers as they came in from the garden. It was sharp and refreshing, and it never once required turning on the stove. On the hottest evenings, sometimes that cold bowl of cucumbers was the only thing that sounded good at all. Cold fried chicken. Now here's the trick our grandmothers understood that we've forgotten. You didn't fry chicken in the heat of the day. You got up early before the sun had any teeth to it, and you fried a big batch in the cool of the morning with the windows open. Then it went in the ice box. And by the time the afternoon turned brutal, you had cold, fried chicken waiting, and no hot kitchen to suffer through. Eaten cold, straight from the refrigerator, wrapped in wax paper for a picnic or a day at the lake, it was somehow even better than fresh. Hard to believe, right? The crust stayed crisp, the meat stayed juicy, and you could eat it with your hands under a shade tree. A whole chicken cut up cost little enough to feed the family with leftovers. Cold fried chicken was the centerpiece of 1,000 summer suppers eaten on the porch, and nobody ever complained about a warm plate. Hey, if you're enjoying this video, I've got something special for you. I put together one book with the best secrets from our grandparents. Frugal home tricks, kitchen tips, garden advice, old-fashioned ways to stop wasting food, timeless recipes, and forgotten wisdom most people barely remember today. Scan the QR code on screen with your phone or click the link in the pinned comment or description, because honestly, a lot of the old ways worked better, and they're worth keeping alive. Buttermilk and cornbread. Ask anybody who grew up in the country and they'll tell you about crumbling cold cornbread into a tall glass of buttermilk. It sounds strange to younger folks, but on a hot evening it was heaven. You took leftover cornbread, broke it into chunks, poured cold buttermilk over the top, and ate it with a spoon like cereal. That's right, cornbread and buttermilk was dinner. Cool, filling, sour, and a little sweet, and about as cheap as food gets. Buttermilk was what was left after churning butter, so on a farm it was nearly free, and cornbread was made from a few cents of meal. Grandpa might have his with a sliced green onion and a shake of black pepper. It cooled you from the inside out and filled an empty stomach without a lick of cooking. For a whole generation raised on hard work and thin wallets, this humble glass was the taste of a summer evening winding down. Bologna sandwiches. Ah, the mighty bologna sandwich. For pennies a slice, bologna fed families through the Depression and every hot summer after. White bread, a slick of mustard or mayonnaise, and a slice or two of that pink lunch meat, and you were set. The fancy move was to fry it, but in the summer lunch heat, nobody was frying anything. So you ate it cold right out of the icebox. Some kids swore by cutting little slits around the edge so it wouldn't dome up in the pan, though cold it didn't matter. Back then, a ring of bologna was one of the cheapest ways to get meat on the table, and it kept for days without going bad. A stack of these wrapped in wax paper went to the fields, to the factory, and to the swimming hole. It wasn't fancy and nobody pretended it was, but a cold bologna sandwich on a scorching afternoon was a small, reliable pleasure a working family could always afford. Cottage cheese and tomatoes. Here's one that sounds like a diet plate today, but was pure summer comfort back then. A scoop of cold cottage cheese right next to thick slices of garden tomato, maybe a little salt and pepper. And that was a light supper on a night too hot to eat anything heavy. That's right, just cottage cheese and a tomato. It was cold, it was cheap, and it went down easy when the heat had stolen your appetite. A lot of grandmothers kept a carton in the icebox all summer long for exactly this. Some folks spooned it over lettuce, some ate it with a sprinkle of sugar, and plenty ate it straight with a hunk of tomato on the side. Cottage cheese was inexpensive protein that needed no cooking, and paired with a ripe tomato, it made a plate that felt cool and clean when everything else felt sticky. On the worst dog days of August, that simple white and red plate was exactly enough. Deviled eggs. No summer gathering was complete without a plate of deviled eggs, and there was a good reason they showed up at every picnic and church social. Eggs were cheap, chickens were everywhere, and you could make a whole platter for next to nothing. You boiled the eggs early in the morning, scooped out the yolks, mashed them with mayonnaise and mustard and a little relish, and piped them back in. Then the whole plate went cold into the icebox until it was time to eat. That's right, no hot food, just a cool, creamy bite you could pop in your mouth in the shade. Grandma had a special covered dish just for carrying them, with little dimples to hold each half in place, a shake of paprika on top, and they looked like $1 million for the cost of a dozen eggs. Deviled eggs traveled well, kept cool, and disappeared fast at every reunion, and they still bring a smile to anyone who remembers reaching for one. Pimento cheese. Down south, they called it the caviar of the South, but really it was just grated cheese, mayonnaise, and chopped pimentos stirred together in a bowl and kept cold. Spread thick on soft white bread, it made a sandwich that didn't need a stove and didn't cost much either. Back in those days, a grandmother would mix up a big batch on Sunday and it would ride in the icebox all week, ready for a cold lunch whenever the heat made cooking unthinkable. Sharp, creamy, and a little sweet from the peppers. It was one of those foods that tasted like home. Some families kept it simple with 3 ingredients, while others added a dash of hot sauce to wake it up. It went on crackers, stuffed into celery, and packed for a day of fishing. Did your family have their own special way of making pimento cheese? Tell us in the comments and tell us what part of the country you grew up in. watermelon for supper. Here's something younger folks might not believe. On the very hottest nights, when nobody could stomach the thought of a real meal, supper was a slice of cold watermelon and nothing else. That's right, just watermelon, eaten on the back steps with the juice running everywhere and the seeds spit out into the yard. A big melon cost mere pennies at a roadside stand or came straight out of the patch for free, and one melon could feed the whole family until they couldn't hold another bite. It was cold, it was sweet, it was almost all water, and it did more to cool a person down than anything hot ever could. Grandpa would thump a few to find the ripe one, then set it in the creek or a wash tub of ice to chill all afternoon. Kids had seed-spitting contests while the grown-ups fanned themselves on the porch. For the price of nearly nothing, a summer watermelon was a feast, a dessert, and a way to beat the heat all at once. Macaroni salad. Cold macaroni salad was a summer workhorse, and every family had their own version sitting in the ice box. You boiled the macaroni early, before the day got hot, then tossed it cold with mayonnaise, chopped onion, celery, maybe a boiled egg, and a little pickle, and let it chill. By supper time, you had a cool, filling dish that stretched a small amount of meat or no meat at all into a meal for the whole table. That's right, a box of macaroni cost next to nothing and fed everybody. It rode along to every potluck, picnic, and reunion, kept cold in the shade with a spoon stuck in the bowl. Some grandmothers went yellow with mustard, some went sweet with a little sugar, and everybody swore theirs was the right way. Once the pasta was boiled in the cool of the morning, the stove stayed off for the rest of the day. Cheap, cold, and filling, macaroni salad was exactly what a hot summer table needed. Bread and milk. This one goes way back to a time when money was tight and appetites were small. In the heat, you tore up a slice of bread into a bowl, poured cold milk over it, and added a spoonful of sugar if you had it. That was the whole thing. And on a sweltering evening, it was strangely satisfying. Some called it milk toast when the bread was toasted first, but in high summer, plenty of folks skipped even that and ate it cold. That's right, just bread and milk in a bowl, eaten with a spoon like a bedtime treat. It cost only a few pennies and asked nothing of the stove. For children, it was comforting, and for tired grown-ups after a long hot day, it was easy on the stomach. Grandpa might crumble in a piece of stale bread rather than waste it, which is exactly how thrifty households ran. Humble as it was, a cool bowl of bread and milk carried a whole generation through the leanest, hottest nights. Cold pork and beans. Believe it or not, plenty of families ate their pork and beans straight from the can, cold, on the hottest days of the year. Opening a can and eating it as is meant no fire, no stove, and no waiting. And when the kitchen felt like an oven, that mattered a great deal. A can of beans cost a dime or so and delivered a filling, protein-packed meal with zero effort. That's right, cold beans right out of the can, sometimes with a slice of bread or a few crackers on the side. It wasn't glamorous, but it stuck to your ribs, and it was cheap enough to keep a whole case in the pantry. Working men took cold cans to the job site, and kids ate them on the porch steps. Some folks stirred in a little mustard or chopped onion, and some ate them plain with a spoon. When the heat made cooking impossible, a cold can of pork and beans was fast, filling, and about as affordable as a meal could be. Potato salad. No dish says summer quite like a big cold bowl of potato salad, and every grandmother guarded her recipe like a family secret. The potatoes were boiled early in the morning before the heat set in, then cooled and mixed with mayonnaise, mustard, onion, celery, and chopped boiled egg. Then it chilled in the icebox until it was cold clear through. Cheap, filling, and endlessly stretchable a few pounds of potatoes, made enough to feed a crowd for the cost of pocket change. That's right, potatoes were one of the most affordable foods around, and they turned into a dish everybody fought over. It showed up at every barbecue, funeral, and 4th of July, sitting in the shade with a serving spoon buried in it. Some made it sweet, some made it tangy, some added pickle, and some wouldn't dream of it. Once those potatoes were boiled before dawn, nobody had to touch the stove again. On a blistering afternoon, that cold, creamy bowl was the heart of the whole spread. If these are bringing the memories flooding back, you are exactly who we make these for. Do us one small favor and subscribe, so the next trip down memory lane finds you. That is all we ask. Now, back to it. Congealed salads. The wiggly, jiggly congealed salad, the crown jewel of the mid-century summer table. Grandma would dissolve a box of Jell-O, stir in canned fruit, shredded carrots, sometimes even shredded cabbage, or a spoon of mayonnaise, pour it into a fancy ring mold, and set it in the ice box to firm up. It came out cold, colorful, and quivering, and it was as much decoration as food. That's right, a box of gelatin cost a nickel or a dime and turned into the centerpiece of the meal. In an age before air conditioning, a cold, shimmering salad felt like the height of refreshment on a hot day. Jell-O had been around since the turn of the century, but these molded salads truly ruled the 1950s and 60s. Every church cookbook was full of them. Each family sure their combination was the best. Lime green with cottage cheese, red with fruit cocktail. The variations went on forever. Love them or laugh at them. That cold, jiggling mold was summer on a plate. Egg salad sandwiches. When the hens were laying and eggs were piling up, egg salad was the natural answer to a hot summer lunch. You boiled a batch in the cool morning, chopped them fine, mixed them with mayonnaise and a little mustard and salt, and spread the cold mixture on soft bread. That was a sandwich that cost almost nothing and needed no stove past that early boil. That's right, a dozen eggs went a long way, and on a farm they were practically free. Cold from the icebox, egg salad was creamy and satisfying on a day when hot food was out of the question. Some grandmothers added chopped celery for crunch, some a bit of sweet pickle, and some kept it plain and simple. It went into lunch pails, picnic baskets, and onto the porch table without a fuss. Cheap, cool, and filling, the egg salad sandwich was one of those quiet summer staples that fed families through every heat wave without anyone thinking twice about it. Peanut butter and banana sandwiches. Here's a sandwich that made kids' eyes light up and cost a grandmother almost nothing. Peanut butter spread thick on white bread, a ripe banana sliced over the top and pressed together into a soft, sweet, filling lunch. No cooking, no stove, no heat, just a few cents of peanut butter and a banana that had gotten a little too ripe to eat plain. That's right, this was a cheap way to fill up hungry children on a hot afternoon. Some families added a drizzle of honey, and some famously went as far as frying it. Though not in the summer heat, peanut butter kept forever in the cupboard and gave you protein for pennies, while bananas were one of the most affordable fruits at the store. Sticky, sweet, and satisfying, this sandwich turned up in lunch boxes and picnic baskets for generations. On a sweltering day when the kids came in starving from playing outside, a peanut butter and banana sandwich was quick, cheap, and always a happy sight. Sardines on crackers. Now here's one the grandpas remember. A flat tin of sardines and a sleeve of saltine crackers made a quick, cheap meal that never went near the stove. You peeled back the lid, laid the little fish on a cracker, maybe added a drop of hot sauce, or a squeeze of lemon and ate right there. That's right. A tin of sardines cost only a few cents and kept in the pantry for years, ready whenever hunger struck on a hot day. Packed with protein and needing no cooking, they were a favorite of working men, fishermen, and anybody who wanted something filling without heating the house. Grandpa would eat them off the tailgate of the truck or on the porch with the newspaper. Some folks turned up their noses at the smell, but those who loved them really loved them. Be honest now, did your grandfather keep a stash of sardines, or was that just ours? Let us know down below. Onion sandwiches. This one will surprise the younger crowd, but a good onion sandwich was a real thing and a real treat. 2 slices of bread, a generous spread of butter or mayonnaise, and a thin slice of sweet onion with a little salt. And that was lunch. That's right, just an onion between bread. When onions were sweet and mild from the garden, it was crisp, cool, and surprisingly delicious, and it cost about as close to nothing as a meal can get. In lean times, when meat was scarce and the heat made cooking miserable, an onion sandwich filled the gap. The trick was slicing the onion thin and picking a sweet variety, not a sharp cooking onion. Some folks pressed the sandwich and let it sit so the flavors mellowed. It was the kind of humble food that people were almost embarrassed to admit they loved, but on a hot day, with a sweet onion fresh from the dirt, that simple sandwich was cheap, satisfying, and cooler than anything off the stove. Radish sandwiches. Along the same lines came the radish sandwich, a springtime and early summer favorite that used up the first crop from the garden. Buttered bread, then sliced red radishes laid across it, and a good sprinkle of salt. And you had a crisp, peppery, cool little sandwich for pennies. That's right, radishes came up fast and cheap in the garden, so this was one of the first fresh things a family ate as the weather warmed. The butter cut the bite of the radish. The salt brought it all together, and the crunch was wonderfully refreshing on a warm day. No stove, no expense, just bread, butter, and something pulled straight from the dirt an hour before. It was the kind of light, cooling bite that suited a hot afternoon when nobody wanted anything heavy. Younger folks may never have tried it, but for those who grew up with a garden, the humble radish sandwich was a small, seasonal pleasure that cost almost nothing and tasted like the start of summer. Sun tea. No summer was complete without a big glass jar of tea steeping on the back porch in the sun. You filled a clean jar with water, dropped in a few tea bags, screwed on the lid, and set it out in the morning to let the sun do all the work. By afternoon, you had a jar of golden tea without ever boiling a drop of water or heating up the kitchen. That's right, the sun brewed it for free, poured over a tall glass of ice with a little sugar and a lemon wedge. Sun tea was the drink of 1,000 summer afternoons. It cost only a few cents worth of tea bags and used nothing but sunshine to make. Grandma had a special jar just for it, often with a little spigot at the bottom. Some added mint from the garden. Some liked it sweet enough to stand a spoon in. On a blistering day, that cold glass of sun-brewed tea was pure refreshment, made the lazy, thrifty, sensible way. Ambrosia. On Sundays and at every summer gathering, out came the ambrosia, that cool, sweet mix of oranges, pineapple, and coconut that felt like a little bit of heaven in a bowl. Grandma would peel and section the oranges, add canned pineapple, stir in shredded coconut, and often a handful of miniature marshmallows, then chill the whole thing until it was cold. That's right, a bowl of fruit dressed up just enough to feel like dessert, and cheap enough to make a big batch. It needed no cooking, only a little chopping and a good long spell in the icebox. Some families added maraschino cherries, some folded in a little whipped cream, and every version was a touch different. Ambrosia went back generations in the South and always meant something special. On a hot afternoon, it was refreshing and sweet without weighing you down. Served ice cold in a pretty glass bowl, that mix of fruit and coconut was a summer treat that families looked forward to all year. Corn flakes for supper. Here's a little secret from a lot of households. On the hottest evenings when nobody wanted to cook or eat anything warm, supper was simply a bowl of cold cereal. Corn flakes with cold milk and a spoon of sugar, eaten at the kitchen table with the fan running. And that was a whole meal. That's right, cereal for dinner, and the children certainly didn't complain. A box of corn flakes was cheap and lasted, the milk was already in the icebox, and no burner ever got lit. When the heat had wilted everyone's appetite, a cold bowl of cereal was light, easy, and just enough. Some added sliced banana or fresh berries from the garden, turning it into something a little more special. It broke every rule about a proper supper, but on a sweltering night, practicality won out every time. For a whole generation, a bowl of cold corn flakes at the end of a scorching day was a small, sensible comfort that nobody thought twice about. Icebox cake. Before every kitchen had an oven going year-round, the icebox cake was the genius answer to a summer dessert. You layered plain cookies or graham crackers with sweetened whipped cream, stacked it all up, and set it in the icebox overnight. The magic happened while it chilled, the cookies softening into cake as the cream soaked in, so that by the next day you had a sliceable dessert without ever turning on the oven. That's right, a cake made entirely in the icebox, no baking required. It was a lifesaver on hot days when the thought of firing up the oven was unbearable. Cheap cookies, a little cream and sugar, and patience were all it took. Some grandmothers used chocolate wafers for a striped effect when sliced, and every family had a favorite version. In the days before air conditioning, a cold, creamy slice of icebox cake felt like the ultimate summer luxury. Which one of these summer meals would you bring back tomorrow if you could? We read every single comment. So tell us your favorite liverwurst sandwiches. For a lot of families, especially those with German roots, a liverwurst sandwich was a cheap and hearty cold lunch that got them through the summer. That soft, spreadable sausage went onto rye or white bread with a little mustard and maybe a slice of onion, straight from the icebox with no cooking at all. That's right, liverwurst, sometimes called brown Schweiger, was an inexpensive deli meat that packed a lot of flavor and filled you up fast. It kept well and cost little, which made it a pantry favorite in thrifty households. On a hot day, it made a satisfying sandwich without ever touching the stove, and it traveled well in a lunch pail or picnic basket. Some folks piled on pickles, some added a slice of cheese, and some ate it plain and simple. It had an old world homemade taste that reminded people of their parents and grandparents. Not everyone's favorite, but for those who grew up on it, a cold liverwurst sandwich was the taste of a working family's summer. Homemade lemonade, and we'll finish with the drink that defined summer itself, a cold glass of homemade lemonade. Grandma squeezed real lemons by hand, stirred the juice with sugar and cold water, and dropped in a tray of ice. And that was refreshment money couldn't improve on. That's right, just lemons, sugar, and water, mixed up in a big pitcher and kept cold in the icebox. On a scorching afternoon, that first tart, sweet ice cold sip was pure relief, and it cost only pennies to make a whole pitcher. Kids famously set up stands to sell it by the glass, and every porch had a sweating pitcher of it in July. Some families added mint or a few strawberries, and everyone had their own balance of sweet and sour. It needed no cooking, only a little squeezing and stirring, which made it the perfect thing to whip up when the heat was at its worst. Simple, cheap, and endlessly refreshing, homemade lemonade was the taste of summer for a whole generation, and it still is. Today's topic came from Carol, one of our subscribers, right here in the comments last week. If there's a slice of the past you'd love us to dig into, tell us below. And the one with the most likes becomes our very next video. So go ahead and subscribe and you won't miss yours.